You walk into a crowded room, and within a fraction of a second, your brain just isolates the face of an old friend from a sea of complete strangers. Or, you look at a complex financial chart, and a sudden dip instantly registers as a warning sign.
Yeah, it's instant.
Right. For hundreds of thousands of years, our survival as a species has basically depended entirely on this one specific cognitive superpower, pattern recognition.
Which is, I mean, it's an incredibly efficient system for navigating a physical environment.
Totally.
The human visual cortex and our intuitive reasoning are just marvels of biological engineering. But that evolutionary imperative definitely has a ceiling.
Because we're optimized for our immediate surroundings. Yeah.
Exactly. We're optimized to recognize patterns on a human scale, things we can see or touch or process within our immediate working memory. The problem arises when the patterns defining our modern world just completely outgrow our biological hardware.
And that is exactly the threshold we are crossing right now. The world has become way too complex, the data is too massive, and the timelines are too stretched out for the human brain to, hold all the variables at once.
We are suddenly surrounded by invisible architecture.
Yes, invisible architecture.
Yeah.
And today's deep dive is really about pulling back the curtain on that. We are dissecting a massive AI news digest from June 7, 2026.
It's a big one.
It is. But instead of just listing off the updates, we're tracking a single unified narrative across 3 very different domains. We are looking at how artificial intelligence is mapping our biology, how it's fundamentally rewriting our digital security, and ultimately how it is exposing our deeply ingrained human biases.
The overarching theme in all of these developments is, well, it's the outsourcing of that evolutionary superpower you mentioned earlier.
Right.
We have basically built machines that can perceive the invisible. We're analyzing how AI's capacity to process billions of data points simultaneously is becoming our most powerful tool for problem solving. But at the same time, it's creating vulnerabilities that we don't even have the cognitive vocabulary to fully understand yet.
Let's start with the biology,
Yeah.
because the developments in healthcare outlined in this digest are just staggering.
Oh, absolutely game-changing.
We're looking at a new class of diagnostic AI that is entirely changing the landscape for rare and complex diseases. Historically, if you had a common ailment, human pattern recognition worked fine.
Right. You present with a fever and a sore throat, the doctor recognizes the pattern and they prescribe antibiotics.
Exactly. But this new system is targeting the anomalies that slip past human perception. Okay, let's unpack this for a second. Imagine you're looking for a needle in a haystack.
A very, very big case.
Right. But the haystack is a lifetime of a patient's complex, messy medical records, and the needle is a microscopic genetic marker. This AI is like a tireless detective that can read and connect those dots in literally seconds.
And the mechanism here is what makes it revolutionary. Because we aren't talking about a simple symptom checker where a patient just inputs headache and fatigue.
No, it's way beyond that.
Way beyond. This system utilizes multimodal large language models integrated with deep learning networks. It is specifically designed to ingest entirely unstructured data.
I use most medical data, right?
Exactly. I mean, think about what a patient's medical history actually looks like. It is a chaotic mess.
Yeah.
You have 30 years of handwritten doctor's notes, PDFs of old lab results, imaging scans from 5 different hospitals, overlapping prescriptions, and maybe some offhand comments made to a specialist a decade ago.
And a human doctor, I mean, even a brilliant one, physically cannot hold 30 years of that unstructured data in their head while simultaneously cross-referencing it against the entire global database of known genetic mutations.
They can't. It's impossible. But this AI model projects all of that messy textual patient history into a multi-dimensional vector space.
So it turns it into math.
Yes, it translates human language and clinical shorthand into mathematical coordinates. Then it runs a comparative analysis against the patient's sequenced genome.
Yeah.
It's looking for microscopic intersections, like a slight abnormality in a liver enzyme test from 2018 combined with a specific variant in a recessive gene.
And together, those form the signature.
Exactly. They form the digital signature of a metabolic disorder that affects, 1 in a million people.
It's like trying to translate a chaotic 20-year-long diary written in 5 different languages into a single precise mathematical coordinate, and then finding the exact matching coordinate in a database the size of the Library of Congress.
In seconds.
In seconds. That is what the system is doing.
Huh.
And the digest emphasizes that this is specifically targeting what the medical community calls the diagnostic odyssey.
Yeah, and the diagnostic odyssey is Well, it's one of the most agonizing phenomena in modern medicine.
It really is.
A patient knows something is deeply wrong with their body. They go to a general practitioner who refers them to a rheumatologist who then refers them to an endocrinologist.
And years go by.
Years. They endure dozens of invasive tests, face multiple misdiagnoses, and suffer deteriorating health, all while the underlying cause just remains a total mystery. The emotional and financial devastation of that journey is profound.
And beyond the individual suffering, let's look at the systemic friction. Every patient trapped on that multi-year odyssey is consuming a massive amount of specialized medical resources.
Right.
They're occupying MRI machines, they're filling specialist schedules, and requiring really complex case reviews.
What's fascinating here is what happens when we deploy this AI. By using it to instantly identify the underlying genetic and historical patterns of these rare diseases, the bottleneck in the healthcare system suddenly widens.
It frees everything up.
Exactly. The AI isn't replacing the doctor, it is functioning as that ultimate medical detective you mentioned, handing the doctor a synthesized dossier.
So the physician still makes the final call.
Yes, the physician still designs the treatment plan. But by eliminating the years of guesswork for the hardest cases, you are returning thousands of hours of specialized labor back to the healthcare grid.
Meaning faster, better standard care for the general population.
Precisely. The efficiency upgrade just ripples outward.
It is such a profound application of mapping invisible biological anomalies. But the fascinating pivot in this digest is how seamlessly the technology transfers domains.
Oh, the transition to cybersecurity.
Yes. Because if AI can find hidden anomalies in our biology to heal us, it is simultaneously being used to find hidden anomalies in our networks to protect us. We move from mapping biological networks to mapping computer networks.
Right. The second major development focuses on AI's integration into global cybersecurity infrastructure.
Yeah.
And the shift here is from reactive defense to preemptive adaptive defense.
Okay, break that down for us.
So, for decades, cybersecurity was primarily signature-based. Think of it like a bouncer at a club holding a wanted poster. If a piece of software tried to enter the network and its code matched the signature on the wanted poster, it was blocked.
But hackers are smart. They use polymorphic malware, right?
Exactly. They change one line of code, the signature changes, the wanted poster is completely useless, and the malware just walks right past the bouncer.
Which is why signature-based defense is failing. So the AI systems detailed in the digest, they operate on behavioral anomaly detection instead.
Yes. Because these systems have been trained on petabytes of historical network traffic, they've literally studied millions of past cyber attacks. They understand the underlying behavior of an intrusion.
Regardless of the specific code being used.
Right. They establish a baseline of what normal network traffic looks like for a specific company.
So if a user who typically logs in from Chicago and accesses like marketing files suddenly logs in from a server in Eastern Europe at 3:00 a.m. and starts pinging the human resources database, the AI flags it.
Even if the user has the correct password.
Because it's recognizing the behavioral pattern of a breach.
It is analyzing the velocity of data requests, the specific pathways being accessed, the timing of the keystrokes. It can detect an intrusion in milliseconds and autonomously quarantine the compromised sector of the network.
Before a human IT manager even receives an alert on their phone.
Exactly. The system evolves alongside the threats. As hackers invent new methods, the AI ingests those new attacks, updates its internal models, and strengthens the shield.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, though. Let me stop you there, because the digest highlights a specific vulnerability that feels like a massive blind spot to me.
The zero-day issue.
Yeah. The tech companies are promoting this as an adaptive shield that learns from millions of past cyber attacks. But if the entire architecture of the AI's logic is built on historical data, how does it handle a true zero-day exploit?
It's a great question.
I mean, I'm talking about a method of attack that is so novel, using a logic pathway so unprecedented, that it literally has no historical equivalent. If the AI is essentially a master of historical patterns, isn't it entirely blind to something that lacks a pattern?
That is the out-of-distribution problem, and it is the exact vulnerability that leading cybersecurity researchers are terrified of. You have hit on the fundamental constraint of machine learning.
It only knows what it's been taught.
Right. An AI cannot conceptualize outside of its training data. If an attack vector is genuinely unprecedented, the anomaly detection might not trigger because the system's parameters of abnormal haven't been calibrated for that specific dimension of weirdness.
It's like training a guard dog to recognize burglars who wear ski masks,
Hmm.
and then a burglar walks in wearing a clown suit, and the dog just watches him take the TV because clowns isn't in the threat database.
That is a perfect analogy, the clown suit. And that is exactly why the source material stresses that the industry cannot succumb to over-reliance on automated defense.
We still need humans.
Absolutely. The AI is a phenomenal filter. It handles the 99.9% of attacks that rely on known behaviors or slight variations of historical malware. It scans the terabytes of daily traffic that would exhaust a human team in seconds.
But human oversight remains the non-negotiable anchor.
Yes. Humans possess intuition, lateral thinking, and the ability to hypothesize completely irrational attack vectors. We can imagine the clown suit.
Right.
The secure networks of the future require this symbiosis. You need the tireless processing power of the machine to manage the sheer volume of data, paired with the creative paranoia of the human expert to hunt for the black swans.
The creative paranoia. I love that. And that concept, the absolute necessity of the human in the loop, is really the perfect bridge to the final section of our digest.
It is.
Because if we are relying on humans to oversee these highly complex systems, whether that's verifying a medical diagnosis or hunting for a zero-day exploit, we have to look closely at the humans doing the overseeing.
And more importantly, the humans doing the initial programming.
Exactly. Which brings us to this major report released by a leading technology think tank. This shifts our focus from the technical capabilities of AI to its ethical and societal implications.
The core focus of their research is the mechanism of algorithmic bias and, the tangible impact it has on high-stakes decision-making.
And we need to be really clear about how this bias actually functions, as outlined in the report, because it's rarely a case of malicious engineers intentionally writing prejudiced code.
No, it's structural.
Right. The digest breaks down the mathematics of it. It all goes back to the training data. These AI systems, especially the ones being deployed in human resources or predictive policing, require massive data sets to learn how to make decisions.
The think tank report explains that an AI optimizes for whatever success metric you give it based entirely on the historical data it is fed.
So what does this all mean in practice? Let's look at the hiring algorithms they analyzed.
Yeah, that's a great example. If a massive tech corporation wants an AI to screen resumes and predict which candidates will be successful engineers, they train the AI on the last 20 years of their own hiring and performance data.
The AI looks at who was hired, who was promoted, and who stayed at the company the longest. But here's the catch. If that 20 years of historical data reflects a culture that predominantly hired and promoted men from a handful of specific universities.
The AI interprets that not as a societal flaw, but as a mathematical blueprint for success.
Exactly. It treats history as objective ground truth. The AI learns that being male or attending a specific college correlates highly with success at this company.
Now, modern developers know this, so they scrub the explicit data. They tell the AI to ignore gender, age, and race.
But the report highlights the insidious nature of proxy variables.
Proxy variables are fascinating and deeply, deeply concerning. Even if you delete the gender column from the spreadsheet, the AI's pattern recognition is so advanced that it finds latent connections hidden deep in the data.
Right, it finds a workaround.
It might notice that candidates who played water polo, or who use specific phrasing in their cover letters, or who belong to certain obscure coding forums, correlate with the successful historical profiles.
So the AI reconstructs the bias through the back door. It optimizes for those proxy variables, effectively continuing to filter out diverse candidates without ever explicitly evaluating gender or race.
And the think tank's analysis shows this isn't just happening in corporate HR. They also analyze predictive policing algorithms used by law enforcement agencies to deploy patrols.
Yeah, this part of the report is intense.
If an AI is fed decades of arrest records, records shaped by historical over-policing in specific neighborhoods, the AI naturally predicts higher crime rates in those exact neighborhoods.
So the police send more patrols there, based on the AI's recommendation, which inevitably leads to more arrests, which feeds new data back into the AI, confirming its original prediction.
It is a self-fulfilling statistical feedback loop.
If you build a house on a crooked foundation, every single room in that house is going to be tilted. It's like using a city map from 1950 to plan the traffic light system for 2026.
You are building infrastructure based on a reality that is fundamentally outdated.
And in doing so, you are actively paving over the neighborhoods that exist today. You are just automating and scaling up the mistakes of the past.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, The think tank asserts that in these high-stakes domains, who gets a job interview, who receives a loan, where police are deployed, we are letting algorithms operate as black boxes.
Data goes in, life-altering decisions come out, and the mechanisms in between are opaque.
This is why their primary recommendation isn't just a vague call for fairness. It is a specific demand for transparency and a radical overhaul of the development pipeline.
They point out that a homogeneous development team is a massive technical vulnerability.
Huge vulnerability.
If the team building the AI all share the same educational background, the same socioeconomic status, and the same general life experiences, they're going to share the exact same blind spots.
They won't recognize the proxy variables because the AI's biased outputs will closely align with their own unchallenged worldview.
Right. So the inclusion of diverse perspectives at the foundational level of AI development is framed not just as a nice social initiative, but as a critical technical requirement.
You need developers who have experienced the negative impacts of biased systems to audit the training data before the model is deployed.
You need someone in the room who can look at the output and say, wait, this optimization function is using zip codes as a proxy for race.
Exactly. The goal is to build glass boxes where the decision-making pathways of the algorithm can be audited and understood by the communities they impact.
Because if we don't, we are just hardwiring our historical flaws into the foundation of our future infrastructure. It is a stark reminder from the report that technology does not exist in a vacuum. It is a mirror.
An incredibly powerful, fast, and efficient mirror, but a mirror nonetheless. It reflects the data we feed it, warts and all.
The paradox of the current technological landscape is that we are creating systems with cognitive capacities that vastly exceed our own, yet they remain entirely constrained by the quality of human input.
That's the tension we're living in right now.
This digest really forces you to step back and view the entire board differently. We started this deep dive exploring AI as a miraculous healer, a life-saving medical detective capable of charting the microscopic genetic anomalies that have kept patients suffering in the dark for years.
Offering a whole new paradigm of efficiency and relief for global healthcare.
Then we saw the application of that same core principle mapping anomalies deployed as a digital shield. Adaptive cybersecurity networks learning from millions of historical attacks to build dynamic defenses around our most critical infrastructure.
While still demanding human intuition as the final line of defense against the unknown zero-day threats.
And finally, we confronted the flaws within that human intuition. We analyzed how the massive data sets powering these systems can inadvertently encode historical prejudices through proxy variables.
Turning algorithms into engines that automate inequality, if left unchecked by diverse, rigorous oversight.
We've explored AI as a medical detective, a digital shield, and a mirror reflecting human biases. We've examined the biology, the security, and the societal impact.
But, looking at the trajectory of these sources, there is a looming question about the nature of this oversight we keep demanding.
Oh, you mean?
Well, we know the power of AI lies in its ability to process variables at a scale and speed that defies biological capability. It is evolving. So consider this. What happens when the AI's internal logic, its multidimensional vector spaces and latent connections, becomes so unimaginably complex that the human oversight we so desperately rely on can no longer actually comprehend how the machine arrived at its conclusion?
Wow. When the math becomes so advanced that the glass box turns black again, simply because our brains aren't built to read the code. That is the event horizon of pattern recognition right there. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope dissecting these sources gave you a clearer map of the invisible architecture being built around us.
Keep questioning the patterns.
Demand to see the mechanisms and stay curious. We will catch you next time.